First thing on the agenda. No changes, I assume. Do you have any questions? All right, entertain a motion on the approval of the agenda. So moved. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries 4-0-1 absent. At this time, we'll take comments for patients. All right, I think we can move on.
Okay, so before we do our budget presentation, Mr. Headland has a little surprise for us tonight. You may or may not know this, but this afternoon, if you want to hit current rent for me. Oh, I don't know, about 11:30.
Hey, we go live today?
We went live today at 11:30.
And it didn't take a month.
Have a solar array that is in operation. It's been energized. It was very sunny when we went out there, but as you can see, it got cloudy. The lines dropped off, but you guys have a link to this. I'll get this updated tomorrow on the website. We have it ready. Eric has something ready. And then we'll also start displaying this in the schools. There's not a lot of data here. Obviously, we only have about 6 hours worth, but it'll start updating and it'll be fun to watch. And so it is operational. Still calibrating, trying to figure out, exactly where we're at, but I was out there when they flipped the switch and there weren't any sparks or smoke coming out, so we counted it as a success, so. Questions on solar? And I think we're good.
So how do you
Things on
equate that
punch
to
list.
dollars? I'm just curious.
What's that?
How do you equate
I
that? to
really
dollars?
wish this, you know how they are. I mean, they've said that from the very beginning. We don't work in dollars. We don't want to work in KWH. So I really wish this would display dollars, but it doesn't. It just does the KWH. And
So
then
you just have to convert it.
there's stuff down there at the bottom that will, how many homes are you powering a year and all that, but dollar amounts.
We use a Wiser app for something similar to this, and it's kind of neat because it converts it to average dollars, so you can see exactly the usage, not saving. But yeah, that's very cool.
It's showing, Brent, if you click on last month, it's they ran a test or something back in July, so that's why those two lines are there. But obviously we're not in operation, we weren't energized then, but if you go ahead and click current, Brent. Yeah, you'll see that that's when it kicked on. If you hover over the line to but obviously the peak was 115 today, but if you go back to the left just a little bit, Brent, I think it'll show about the time it went. Yeah, it was about 11:30. We went out there and it started coming on slowly. Each section of panels came on, so that's where we're at. So keep an eye on it, but we are in operation. So
I mean,
thanks.
it should be saving us like $20 an hour. It should be like $500 a day.
We hope. That's great. Let's see. All right, so tonight is the budget presentation. Thanks for coming in on a second night of the month. It's just easier for me. It's easier for Mrs. Cheeseman for us to just have a regular meeting, get everything out of the way for that month, and then just focus on one night of budget. It gives us another week to get everything ready to with school getting started. So tonight, the only action that the board is really needing to take is once I get finished here, you need to grant us permission to advertise this. We're required to advertise this on Gateway and on our school webpage for a period of time, which I'll go over here in a minute. But that's really the only action that the board will take this evening. A reminder about the budget calendar. You adopted this back in June. Tonight's presentation and permission to advertise. Tomorrow, barring any setbacks, the legal publication go live on the website and in Gateway. And then it has to sit for at least 10 calendar days. We have our budget public hearing set for September 9th, which is the next regular board meeting. And we'll open that up. I'll do a little presentation that night. Repeat some of the things we talked about tonight, but then the public can come in and make any comments they want at 5:45. Following that, and again, no action is taken at the public hearing. From there, we have to wait 10 days, and then you have a chance to adopt your budget for 2026. And right now, tentatively, we're scheduled for September 23rd at 3:30 to adopt the budget, capital funds, our capital projects plan, school bus replacement. We've got several slides. I'll go through these, but then and feel free to stop me if you have questions. But then we can probably hit some of the handouts, some of the things that were in your email. But these are pretty much the basic slides that I go over every year, just with updated data and information. So just a reminder about the budget process. A little tricky for schools. It's really an 18-month process. We have to finish out this calendar year. So we're really kind of thinking about these 6 months plus the next 12 months. We have an idea on spending, obviously, for the school year, but really don't know exactly what we'll spend school year starting next fall. Same way with revenue. We have an idea what the revenue is going to look like based upon pupil count, but that obviously can change every 6 months as the pupil count changes. So it's really an 18-month process, and not just a year. We've kind of already hit this, but in the state of Indiana, municipalities, townships, county government, schools, you have to follow the three-step process. You have to advertise, you have to have a public hearing, you have to adopt. And then the key points down there at the bottom, whatever spending is advertised. So really, when we say budget, we're really talking about permission the board is granting us as a corporation to spend. And also what the state is saying, you can spend up to this amount when we say a budget. It does not guarantee that you're going to have that money there. Based upon calculations and cash balances and those types of things, DLGF is going to say, we think you are safe to spend up to this amount. Obviously, you don't have to, but we cannot spend past that amount without the board taking and advertising an additional appropriation. Okay. So we're going to advertise, we always do. We advertise high on the budget. Just gives us some flexibility. Obviously, if we increase 100 kids in February, we want to be able to spend that money on staff and whatnot. But if you have not planned ahead in your budget, you got to go through the additional appropriation process. Now, last point on this slide is your tax rate. So really, the board only controls tax rate. You cannot control how much is levied, especially in operations, which we'll hit in a minute. You do have a little bit of control over that tax rate. And whatever you advertise starting tomorrow, okay, unless you start the process all over, you cannot raise that tax rate. So what we ran into a few years ago, I think all 4 of you were on the board at that time, but the county messed up the AVs. They had them all screwed up. They had us way, way too high. And I mean, if you had gone through the process, you had already approved that tax rate, you're out of luck. So in that case, it was a good thing because AVs were too high, but if they'd been too low and then they come back and say, hey, you got another 100 million in AV, well, it's too late. Your tax rate is your tax rate. So you'll see they're going to be extremely elevated this year. I'll show you what we're going to advertise, and then I'll tell you what we project the actual rate to be. Okay, so budget definitions. You get two different types of funds and where the revenue comes from. Your local tax dollars, primarily your property tax dollars, go to these funds: debt service and operations. School pension fund we had for years, no longer. We've zeroed that out, right, Mr. Cheeseman? It's gone. Zero. Don't have to worry about that one anymore. So what's debt service fund? Debt service is any bonds, any debt you have as a school corporation, common school loans. And basically you have to go through the process. And you've been through this enough. But if you get that debt approved, you get that project approved, you can take on as much debt as you want. But you have to, obviously, you have to pay your debt service. That's your primary responsibility out of the local tax dollars that you get. Then you have your operations fund. The operations fund is supported by local tax dollars, and it is a set levy. So what that means is you only get so many dollars. You can't say, unlike debt service, where you can go out and take on as many projects as the public and you want. And operations, you can't say, man, we want another $500,000 in operations this year because it's just been too tight. Can't do that. You have what is called a set max levy, and you cannot add to it. You can only subtract from it. And each year there's an equation, usually some type of percentage they'll give us. For the last few years, it's been a 4% increase. So we can basically take what we can take what we got in operations levy last year, take it times 0.04, and know that that is most likely the maximum we're going to get to add to operations. To give an idea, in operations, our max new levy will be last year's plus about $89,000. So $89,000 is all the new money we're getting in operations. It doesn't matter if you add 100 students, you add 5,000 students. Your max levy in operations is your max levy. And I did that several months ago. Student count has nothing to do with your operations. It has to do with your tax base. That's it. All right. Circuit breaker obviously plays a large part in your local tax supported funds. What is a circuit breaker? So assessed valuation is a number placed upon either your home, your property, your business. Does not necessarily, it doesn't mean that's what it would sell for if you took it out to market, but it's a number given, a figure given for tax purposes. So if I have a home that has an assessed valuation of $100,000, all right, assessed valuation, I am guaranteed in the state of Indiana not to pay more than 1% of that assessed valuation in all my local tax dollars, not just school. So for me, I mean, I don't live in town, but I have the road township tax. I can't remember. I should have looked at my tax bill again. I don't think I pay into the library. But for the township folks, there's not too many things on there. If you live in town, quite a few. You obviously have fire, you have police. Some of these municipalities really add things on. So the more entities you have grabbing at tax dollars, you can see you can get to that $1,000 of assessed valuation really fast. $100,000 over 1%. We are fortunate in that we don't have a lot of industry here from this respect, and circuit breaker doesn't absolutely kill us. But we are projected to lose $262,000 out of these funds, out of revenue coming in to these funds because of the circuit breaker. Randolph Central will lose over $500,000 in circuit breaker costs just because of their tax structures over there with multiple municipalities pulling in. Okay. The big thing I want you to understand on local taxes, we talk about it every year, is max levy in operations. Okay, because I hear it all the time. Well, why don't you get more money for operations? You can't. Okay, you get what you get. And circuit breaker, so far, hasn't been a bad thing for us. Could start to change, as Mrs. Cheeseman will tell you on a little presentation. Any questions? Okay, we're going to totally switch gears. Now you're going to state support funds, which is the education fund. Really, you have no control over this. You have control over how we spend the money, obviously. But as far as the revenue coming in, we get what we get from the state, and it's based primarily on per pupil count, what we call tuition support. There are 2 count days this year, October 1st, February 2nd. So we'll get a fall count on October. Doesn't have anything to do with who's here that day. It has to do with who's enrolled. State last year in the legislative session set the dollar amount per pupil, $6,967 per student. So we had to turn in a number this summer of what we thought our enrollment might be. And Jessica and I put in 1045, because that's what we were last year. So right now, starting in July, we started getting payments for this school year. We're getting payments based upon 1,045 students. $6,967 per student. Right now, we don't have 1045. So on October 1st, if we are at 1027 or 1029 or 1026, whatever it is, at that point, they're going to deduct future payments. They're going to deduct from our future payments to sure up that count number. Because right now, again, we're getting 1045. And that usually takes place in November. Goes the other way too, though. We jump above 1045, then we're going to get additional dollars. And that happened last year. All right.
Is this 1026 number right? As of today?
Actually, I think it's about 1029. I think I did another one this afternoon. So, yeah.
And another thing is, I know this is always your secret hidden number here, and it's like the kids who aren't really enrolled
Yeah.
but I have noticed the last 3 years, there's a significantly higher amount than we've ever had of those.
Yeah. So some of those kids are RAS kids that have to be in our system that go to another school. It's just they're kids in our power school. They aren't necessarily homeschool kids or here
Okay.
just for sports. There are a few. I think there are 2 maybe I saw this afternoon that are like that.
The RAS 32 makes sense. Why it's
The
been
RAS
just
32
recently.
kids are in there.
Okay.
And again, I hate even putting that on there because it makes it even more confusing, but if I don't, I lose track. When
I remember what it was and everything. I just,
And that's why I've added this new column down here at the bottom. So if you don't even want to look at anything, just look at these down here compared to last year's to this year. Because those are real numbers. Those are kids that we have. Now, new wrinkle in tuition support this year is that 6967 number includes curriculum materials. So a few years ago, they said you can no longer charge textbook rental or charge for curriculum materials. Okay. And they were giving us a lump sum. It usually came in December for the last 2 years. Now they've taken that out. I mean, it's up to about $150,000 for Chromebooks and anything we turn in. But it was based on per pupil count as well. Now there is no additional payment. It's all part of that number right there. So that is tricky because it looks like you have this, large amount of money in your education fund. But you also have to remember curriculum materials is part of that. So one thing I'll touch on here while we're at this point is, I think if you've been watching your fund report, we're at an all-time high in the education fund for our balance. We're really, we made a drastic turn in 2 years. Be careful though with that balance number, because I'm going to tell you what, if our enrollment holds where it's at, which it's fine, we're in good shape. But what's going to happen to that number is not like it has the last 24 months. It will not continue to increase. We're going to start seeing that level off. And like I said, in November, if we stay at 1026, you're going to see a major deficit just for the month of November, because they're going to pull back a lot of funding. They're going to withhold a lot of funding to shore us up. And we'll be good. And like I said, our balance is strong. We're positioned well for this. It's just, we have to be careful. Multiple years of 15 to 20 student drops will require some changes structurally, staff wise, what we do, program wise, those kind of things. The other things that factor into the education fund, besides just tuition support, category grants, special ed dollars, which special ed dollars were way up last year. But I can tell you, we've lost some students in that area, and Ann's concerned that we may go the other way on special ed dollars. That is determined in December. That's December 1 count when that will come in. And then complexity grant is a complicated formula they throw in there for SNAP. Right, that's your education fund. So again, local property taxes primarily, service, debt service fund, your operations. And really that, when we talked about tax rate here in a minute, we're only talking about these two funds. Tax rate has nothing to do with the education fund. All right? It's pretty well set, because you're going to get your dollars based upon your kids, what categories they fall in, or what their economic status is.
The state, I mean, is it as easy as 6696 or not, 6967 times 1045 divided by 12? We get a monthly payment.
I wish it was that easy. It's close. It's close. And that'll give you a ballpark
General.
figure. Now you're gonna get $100 here for an academic kid.
Sure.
You may get
But it's a
$1,100 for a
monthly-
welding kid for, now special ed, there's some high dollar. I
But
mean,
it's a monthly payment that gets shared up in November or,
and I shared that. I don't usually share that with you, but it was a sheet I emailed you guys. It's called it's called a 54 sheet. The DOE 54. And basically, it's just, this is our payment sheet we get every month. We get a one-time payment from the state. It's usually on the 15th of the month. And it will tell you what the net payment was for that month. And it pretty much has all 12 months, what they think you will get. And obviously those change as the ADM number does.
Sure.
But if you really want to dive into that, the best thing to look at is this one sheet, DOE, it's called the DOE 54. And it was in one of the attachments I sent you on Friday. But we study that thing. I mean, that's our Bible. I mean, when it comes to the education fund, it really does show you what you're going to get, projected to get for the entire year, based on the account that you turn in. Okay, we're gonna jump to this, and then I got a few points that we're going to talk about. So from a budget standpoint, last year's budget, this year's budget, 25, 8.1 million. We would like to ask permission tonight for $8.3 million budget. It's up by exactly 200,000. Again, we're just asking permission to do that. Does not mean we'll spend that. We're not going to spend the 8.1 this year, but we want the flexibility to go that high if we need to. Debt service, you can see not much of a change there. We did add the bus into this budget, 3 payments starting next year. So you're not seeing a big change there. Operations, I can tell you this is way higher than we're going to get. So that operations budget is your levy from property tax plus the 15% transfer from education. So this year we have an operations budget of 3.9. We're asking for 4.3. We're not going to spend 3.9 this year, and we're not going to have 4.3 to spend next year. All right. Just to give you an idea on the operations levy, like I said, we're only looking at $89,000 worth of new money. And with the education number going down, I mean, as far as the number of pupils, that transfer amount, probably not going to change much. So get ready. Don't panic. Because this is what Jessica knows. This is the one I do not want to switch to. Because we're going to switch to tax
the
rate.
15%
Yes.
that we transfer every month
Yes.
over.
Yes.
It's, go back a page. Or sorry, yeah,
That one?
nope, one more, forward, 2. One more. Yep. That 15% is in the operations, not the education fund,
Bingo.
because
Because
it's
this
just asking
budget.
budget to spend.
This is what we're asking to spend. Yes.
Yeah.
So am I right on that? Correct? Yes. And the other part of that, and this is where it's going to get in the weeds, but the tax anticipation warrant as well, which is money in, money out. Money, they send us money, and at the end of the year, when we have it from the county, we send it back, basically, back to the tax anticipation warrant people. But you still have to budget that because you're spending, I mean, you're spending it. That's tricky. Okay. So here's your history of assessed valuation. Again, this is just Monroe, Green, Stony Creek Township. Take all the farmland, all the homes, all the businesses, assign a value to them for tax purposes. This is what the value is in those three townships, which we call our tax base. So last year was an all-time high, 263 million. It has jumped tremendously since 22. I mean, so fast that honestly, the tax rate couldn't keep up when we knew that. And in the past, we've always tried to keep a steady tax rate. And that was easy to do when you're going from 203 to 206 to 202 to 2. I mean, it's easy to keep a consistent tax rate when you're not having drastic jumps in AV, but this has been a good thing somewhat. We've seen a huge jump in AV. So when we started building the budget a couple weeks ago, kind of rule of thumb is use 80% because we did not know what the AV was going to be. So we used 210 million. So the advertisement that we're going to show you in a minute is based upon 210 million. Unless there was a mistake, Randolph County announced last week through DLGF that our AV is going to be 264. So, we're pretty safe to use 264 for our projections, but from an advertisement standpoint, what I'm saying is we're going to use 210. 264 is nice. It's good in that it did not go down. You don't necessarily want to see it down, but when you compare it, and that's one of your handouts, if you want to pull that out, or you guys want to, like I got extras. If you got one of them, you have this.
Here, you can get that.
Yeah, show that. You got it. This is important. So 264 is our AV. If you look at the county, Randolph Southern's AV this year is going to be $319 million.
Did their windmills fall off of their,
Absolutely.
so now their windmills are being taxed, is why it went up so much?
So they went from 252 million to 319. That's an incredible jump, incredible jump. So what they're going to do is they're either going to take on a lot of debt right now, or they're just going to let their tax rate drop. I mean, it's you either take on more debt because you can't add, like I said, you can't say, well, we want more in operations money. No, you get what you get in operations. You either take on more debt or you let your tax flat. I would assume they're just going to let the tax rate drop.
Thank you for explaining it, because I've had to explain that to many people.
Please just do it that simple.
People
It is
think, why
that
don't you just
simple.
save money for a solar field? Well, it's not quite,
You can't do it.
you can't do it.
You cannot say.
It doesn't work
It does not, it does not make sense. That's not the way you necessarily want to do it as a homeowner or as a individual investor, whatever, but that's the way government entities work. You cannot. So they'll do that. Okay, so Randolph Central went from 501 to 524, so they saw an increase. Randolph Eastern went from 244 to 266. Union is yet to be determined because they have two townships, Union Township, which is in Randolph County, which is now going to be 250 million. And then they have Stony Creek Township, which is in Henry County, and they have yet to release their AVs. But I know that it will be, at least 40, probably 50 million there. So they're looking at a total AV, I'm going to just guess approximately 300 million for Union. So as I tried to say a couple months ago, and this is nobody's fault, this is just who we are, and this is what we are. We are, from a tax-based standpoint, we have the lowest, smallest tax base of the 5 Randolph County schools. And I don't think people realize that. Because I get it, I hear it from superintendents all the time when I go to meetings, they always razz me about our tax rate. And I just want to say, well, what do you expect? I mean, when we have an AV that's half of yours and we're educating twice as many kids as you, what do you expect? Yeah, our tax rate's gonna be higher. Questions on AV and how that works. So again, we didn't have, obviously we don't have any solar here right now. We don't have any windmills right now that have come on. And I think those are the big driving factors between, Central had a few come on, obviously Southern had a lot. Union's gonna have a tremendous amount in the next several years come on.
Do we know when they,
Wasn't
wasn't it a 10-year?
it's 10-year abatement, I know that. I think Southern was the first area to really start getting. Man, it's been about 10 years, so they're starting to see that come on their tax roll.
And I get that good neighbor paycheck from the one behind my house, and I think it started 3 years ago, 4 years ago, so that means they probably have another 6-7 years left.
So when you, and again, all we're talking about are those two funds right here, debt service, operations fund, because that's it. That's all we're collecting, revenue or levy for from a local standpoint. It's a very simple formula. You take your assessed valuation, you take it times a tax rate, and that's going to give you what your levy is. Well, we figure out, all right, this is how much debt we owe in 2026. This is the payments we're going to have to make. So that's a number we know. We know what the operations number is going to be because it's basically going to be whatever you got last year plus 4%. And that pretty well tells you this is what we're going to get as far as levy from the state. Dictates your tax rate. There it is. Whoop. So based upon that AV we had on there of 210, we're asking to advertise a tax rate of $2.06. Debt service is 82. Operations at $1.23. Now I can tell you what it's going to be though. Not even going to be close to that. Again, we're covering ourselves in case of an absolute anomaly. I mean, I don't even know what it would be. That debt service rate is twice as much as what it's going to actually be. Our debt service rate will likely be 41 cents. Our operations, again, just based upon the fact that we're only going to be able to get $89,000. Our operations rate will be 87 cents. I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm projecting our tax rate, just kind of worked on this afternoon with a guy from Steeple, about $1.29. I think it'll be within a cent or so of that. Now, again, if we messed up somewhere and we're off on operations, for example, and we get more, then yeah, that's why we're advertising a higher rate. But it's not going to be anywhere near there. Same way with debt. If for some reason, well, we triple check this thing, but if for some reason there's something wrong there on our debt worksheet and DLG catches it, then they're going to say, you know, you got to have more, you got to levy more in debt service. You're not going to be able to pay your debts, and we need to have the flexibility to do that. We can't go back later and advertise. So again, I used to have a second column where I showed the projections. And I didn't on this one, but I can tell you I'm projecting $1.28.
28 or 29?
Well, 1.2895. It's exactly what we had today. 1.2895. Now, what concerns me a little bit is that slips a little bit from where we were. We were up 1.3476 last year.
What did we advertise the last couple of years?
$1.60, $1.65.
So why the significant difference this year?
Okay, so we are, when we started talking about Senate Bill 1 and obviously the impact that Union School Corporation closing could have, you asked me kind of what I needed. And one thing I asked was I wanted to get a real strong budget individual working with us. So I reached out to a guy by the name of Brian Harmon. He is the superintendent at Lagodi. He has been a superintendent for 30 years. He runs his own private LLC consulting business. He works with about 25, 24 school corporations, just on the side, helping them out on their budgets. He's worked for Randolph Southern for years. I'm sorry, Randolph Central for years. He works with Emily down at Nettle Creek, Emily Schaefer, and worked for the few schools up north, but primarily down around his area. So we started working with him we started back when I first talked to you. I reached out to him, and he's been sending us emails, but he sat down with us, by Zoom. It was back in July, and we spent about 4 hours one day, and we hammered this thing out. And he's got a process to do it, and it's slick. It's really good. Jessica, you can talk, but basically to answer your question before she does, he just has a philosophy. He's going to advertise extremely well.
The 80% number you highlighted before, I don't remember that being highlighted 80% for the folks,
We-
so that
we-
makes more sense.
We would typically kind of knock off. I didn't even do it by percentage. We might knock off.
Yeah.
200 million or something. I mean, we would not, I'm sorry, 20 million or something, not anything like an 80%. 80, so. Again, you're just protecting yourself. It doesn't, just because you advertise that does not mean you can't come back later, even if it, and reduce it. You can always reduce it. Now, once you adopt, I'm not saying that, once you
Reduce
adopt,
What you advertise,
yes.
and re-advertise basically.
Well, you can reduce
Without
your
advertising.
adoption meeting, okay? I don't advise it, but you could, I mean, if 100 people come in there and say, it's too high, I don't want you to do that, you could say that we want you to submit to DLGF. $1.75 is our max rate. We'll have to go in, refigure some things, submit it. I still think it'll be a lot lower than that, but if something were to happen, or AV is wrong, then they're going to come back and say, sorry, you should have advertised higher. Jessica, why don't you talk about Dr. Harmon a little bit? I've talked enough. You're here. Just talk about the process, and you've done it now for what, 5 years, 4 years. I'm talking about this year versus how we've done it in the past.
I didn't bring it. Do you have that sheet?
Yeah,
The
I do.
worksheet?
I do. Yes, it's called the Harmon sheet.
The Harmon sheet.
The Harmon sheet is one
And
picture.
we do it step by step. We do education, debt service, operations. He even has rainy day in there. And it is step by step. It is on this. I think you guys have this. On this sheet, he has it detailed. This line 1 will be this amount. And we made sure that everything on his sheet matched this sheet here. And to input it, it was such a breeze. And we've learned that things that we did in the past, we weren't doing correctly and we needed to change it. I think that's what some of the increase in made a difference is that we're trying to get to that point and look in the future what the next few years could bring. So we're just trying to get ahead of the game on that.
And that. So it's impossible to talk about future budgets without just talking about the subject of union closing. So this year, it's just a normal year. Next year at this time, totally different process. And I needed to be able to, and Jessica needed to be able to have some guidance, at least from somebody that's done a lot of these, on what that could look like. Now, it's quite unusual what's getting ready to happen. So Dr. Harmon's been through some consolidations. And I don't think he's necessarily been through a school closing, what that would look like. But I do think he has some ideas on how this could work. And we also found out some things today. We're talking with Luke Bregman of Steeple, what this process could look like next year at this time as well. So I don't want to get too, focused tonight is we got to get permission to advertise, but just to preview a little bit about next year, what this will look like. I mean, when we build a budget for 27, right now, the way the legislation, well, the law is for Senate Bill 1, on July 1st of 2027, union will no longer be in operation. So tax levy will be divided between Blue River Valley and Monroe Central. Union Township tax dollars will go to Monroe Central. Obviously, Stony Creek of Henry County will go to Blue River. My question and the big unknown right now is what, not just the tax rate, but what will the maximum operating levy be? Is it just going to be what our operating levy was? Plus, they haven't even determined this yet. But if it's a typical year, they'll just add 4%. Well, if that's the case, then you add all this AV, you can imagine what's going to happen to the tax rate. Are you going to allow the operating levy that's currently at Union School Corporation? Are you going to allow that operating levy to transfer over? And again, it's just a number. It's not any dollars. It's just, are you going to allow that operating levy to come to Monroe Central and now become part of our operating levy? So you take our operating levy plus their operating levy, and that's your max. That I don't know. And I don't think anybody knows that yet. Everybody says they do, they don't. I think that's going to be determined by the Department of Local Government Finance. And that they need to, obviously, they need to let us know. And that's one of the conversations we had today with the guy from Steeple, and he actually fired an email off to somebody he knew in that department, just saying, hey, can you help Monroe Central out? They just kind of need to know this. Obviously, we're not budgeting yet for 27. We're starting January, February, we will be. Once we get this thing wrapped up, then we're going to need to know that. So those are some things, the challenges we've faced. So back to your original question, the whole process this year been a little different. That's because of working with Dr. Harm, which I think is.
And of his 22 schools that he has, 20 some,
She did say this. You're your own. That's good.
I wasn't going on that one, but he does Evansville. They're the second largest budget in the state.
He
So
does
it's not
everything.
just
Small,
Little.
like Hagerstown, Monroe Central, up to Evansville. The guy's, he's really fascinating. He is fantastic at what he does. He's really tried to simplify the process. He told us that of the budgets he's done this summer, I think he said only 2 school corporations this point in the year, from January to June, have spent less in education than them. And that is by design. We know where we were 2 years ago. We had to recruit, we had to get ready for, the storm. We've weathered that. We don't know what's going to come with some of these tax laws that are changing, but he was impressed by that. He really was. He was like, I can't believe you guys are doing as well as you are in your education plan. So it's a good thing. Okay, so a couple other things that didn't necessarily make slide. Wrap this up. Talk long enough. On that education front, and one of the reasons why he said what he did, and why I'm not as concerned as I typically would be about enrollment being down 15 or 20 kids. We prepared last spring for it. I mean, we did. We're down 2 teachers right now. In total, when you do the whole math of this one, we actually, through retirements, whatnot, moving on, we're down 2 teaching positions. Obviously, we had some teachers leave that were high on the teacher pay scale and low. So we're in pretty good shape going into this year, even with the decline. As we go into bargaining, we have to look at that number. Because to be frank, I mean, if we're not careful, we might actually spend less on teacher salaries this year than we did last year. All right, we don't hit the number right with our association, so just something to think about. Cash balances overall, just like our bank statement. I mean, we are in a much healthier position than we were 2 years ago. We're carrying about $1 million more on our bank statement. Again, that's all funds, just everything lumped together that Jess tracks. We're about $1 million more than we were 2 years ago. Right. Which is a good thing. We've eliminated those ESSER positions, those extra positions we added during COVID, that we're basically an unfunded liability. We've restructured, so we've got our staff right-sized right now. Obviously, with solar coming on, hopefully that will help operations. Mr. Cohen's already talked about that. So, what questions you have for me? The 26 budget is, I mean, as long as that took, it's pretty cut and dry. I mean, it's there right in front of you. The 27 budget is going to be very, very unique. We, as a board, obviously, there's a lot of work to be done at the board level. As far as how that's going to be organized, definitely from a school finance perspective, the next 12 months are going to be very important. Get our head around it. I know it's still way out there. It seems like July 1 of 2027. But from a budget standpoint, we're not that far away. Mrs. Cheeseman, what did I miss?
Nothing.
So again, if these little worksheets you see here, they're called the Form 4Bs. Down at the very bottom, it'll show you the property tax rate. 82 cents on the front one, that's debt service. Nothing on the next one, because that's education. $1.23 on the operations. You add those all up, you get you back to that 206 number that we talked about from an advertising standpoint. This is what, if this goes green tomorrow, if it's on the website and in Gateway, this will what taxpayers will have access to. They can look at this. If you do go ahead and allow us permission to advertise, you can share it with, I will share it with taxpayers that yes, we do this to cover ourselves, but we actually project that our tax rate will go down next year versus this year. It's going to go down by about 5 or 6 cents. Again, that is not rock solid. That's just based upon our projections right now on that AV. And then we've got our operations dollars figured correctly.
Haven't heard anything on this for a month or two, but I'm sure it's coming up again with all the tax talk. Union is currently at 80 cents, 85 cents, something like that.
And I would assume, I'm careful assuming things, but based upon the AV and what their AV has done, I would assume that will drop even further.
Yeah. Okay.
Because for one, well, I don't know how it won't, because again, operations is a set levy. And by law, they've been told they can't take on any additional debt. So if your AV increases and your revenue out here, or your levy's not going to change, then your tax rate's going to drop.
Probably drops significantly.
I would, I don't know what that Henry County AV is going to be, but they gained $30 million in AV just in Union Township in 1 year. I would think they're going to drop a nickel at least. Again, I'm spitballing here. I haven't looked their budget that carefully. I don't think that we actually Luke looked at that today and he said, no, there wasn't any debt there.
They don't even currently have any debt.
That was news to me.
Oh, they had a lot of money coming in.
So again, if you get questions from your taxpayers, all of us, I think, like I said, I think you can say that it's not gonna be higher than what you're paying right now, probably a nickel less. And I think it's time to start. I mean, we've waited here a few months. I've been telling people that in the 3 townships that make up Monroe Central, I think you could see your taxes drop significantly in the future. I think that's a reality here. What we're looking at. And not necessarily, not cut any services, hopefully add some things, hopefully add to our operations levy and still see these 3 townships taxes go down. Basically, all you're doing tonight is let us advertise this right here.
Any more questions? Mr. Swallow, you'll fly down there.
They got all in. 5 or 6 cents, then some of a lot, I guess.
Well, the projected puts us back even
Lower
below
than
what we were before all the previous debt fell off and we had that drop. 1.2.
Do we have any idea what the other county services are? Cause that affects what people pay
Right,
as much.
right.
as
And that,
we do,
I think
right?
that's a key point. You know,
I mean, have you heard anything?
you could say your taxes are going down, but if Parker or something, I mean, they would take on some, then their overall taxes aren't. The part that you control might go down 5 cents, but you know, we all have to play together. So I think I said, you gotta be careful saying your taxes are gonna go down. I just, from a school standpoint, I think our taxes will not go up. But I have not heard anything from the towns saying taking on any new projects or taking on significant debt. I don't know of any.
And Kent too, right? Police.
Yeah.
I feel like there was some talk this summer about that. Was there a meeting? They were squealing pretty good about needing more money from new officers and pay.
I know last year,
I
I
would
would
assume-
contact you before this meeting.
Was it last year?
Yeah.
I feel like there's one this.
Now, we have not got into, and it's late now. This is a whole nother meeting, and really it is. The other components of Senate Bill 1, obviously Senate Bill 1 affects us because union was included in that. For everybody else and us, it has major impacts on the schools. Don't think we're gonna feel as much next year. Definitely year after year after year, you're gonna see less and less coming in on operations. What you're gonna see is, and again, I don't wanna get too far in this. Luke explained it this way. He said, you're gonna really have to focus on your levy amount and make sure that levy amount that you convince your boards and your public, like, we cannot drop that levy amount. I mean, we have to operate at that amount. But know that because of circuit breakers, because of all the tax credits, your tax rates are gonna start going up. Rates were gonna go up. ABs are gonna start dropping. There's gonna be all kinds of credits. And rates are gonna look like this history. We're probably gonna have to put an asterisk out here starting in 2026 and say new tax structure. Because it's not gonna be kept comparing apples to apples. Just not.
With the levy amount from union, if you don't hear back from the individual with the email, can somebody reach out to Prescott and ask for help? This is kind of his whole thing and
And again, I don't know if Rep Press, I mean, obviously the legislators can take action on this, but this is really a Department of Local Government Finance. That's their ball. I mean, it's their deal. They deal with this stuff all the time. It's just somebody needs to officially communicate that, I think, at some point. And maybe now's not the time. Definitely going into the new calendar.
Under
year.
normal circumstances of a school consolidation would take on that levy, correct?
Yes. But this, what is unique about this is there's some past practice to fall back upon for school consolidations. As you know, this is not a school consolidation.
Right.
So this is kind of, I'm sure there's some history there somewhere, but it's just not as common. And I think everybody's still kind of in the dark. Exactly how we'll be. So that, yeah, that, I mean, I guess the question I would leave you, what will our ops max levy going forward look like? We know what it's gonna look like in 26. What will it start looking like in 27? It's gonna determine staffing, how many buses we buy, we add additional bus routes, all those kind of things. I mean, we can't do that in 26 because we're not getting any new, we're not getting any new funds. But if we need to start planning for that in 27, then we need to know, all right, what they're gonna look like. I mean, Brent and Craig and I we just had a discussion Monday morning about this. We just talked about this and, you know, I'd love to be able to tell these guys that we're gonna add another tech coach or tech. I mean, we need help in that area. Can't do that. Cannot do that right now with all the uncertainty in operations. Can't do it.
Somebody just to set reset passwords the first week of the.
It'd be nice. But look, that said, I mean, again, I don't want to bury the lead here. I'm as optimistic and as excited about the future of Monroe Central than I have been in a long time. I really am. I think great things are ahead for Monroe Central.
Do I have any other questions? All right. I will entertain a motion for permission to advertise the 2026 budget as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 4-0, one absent.
I believe, unless crew over at the table have anything. Just a reminder, next meeting, September 9th. We will do school improvement plans that night. We're gonna bring in a new teacher evaluation model that night. Prior to that meeting, we'll have the budget public hearing at 5:45. Then you got ISBA in there somewhere. I got to send those dates back out, but I've got you booked for that. It's in between the 9th and the 23rd. Can't remember exactly when, but
15th and 16th.
ISBA is on that Monday, Tuesday, I think, 15th, 16th. And then we'll come back for a budget adoption on the 23rd. Ms. Bly, got anything? Mr. Headland?
Had a good week of school. All things.
Yeah.
Instruction wise.
That's
Great.
Instruction
Was
wise.
something.
That's all I got. Thank you, Mr. Cheeseman, for being here tonight.
Need to look at which are work then.
Yeah, this works. That one is there.
Now you can come over here. What you'll do is hit stop streaming.
Oh, I don't think I'd recognize. It's Mr.